Hello and welcome to SEO Rankings Do Follow podcast. Here we hold regular talks with SEO and digital marketing experts to discuss hot SEO topics and share actionable insights with the SEO community. So subscribe to stay on top of everything going on at SEO. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how businesses can transition from text to multimedia to enhance their content strategies for international SEO. I'd like to welcome our guest, Azeem Ahmad of Azeem Digital. Welcome, Azeem. Great to have you with us.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It is a very massive pleasure to be here. A lot of love and a lot of time for SE ranking.
Appreciate it. If you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right into it. And I'd like to start off by asking you to talk about a bit more about yourself and talk about the background that you have in terms of SEO and content strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. A very short introduction to myself. I'm Azeem Ahmad. I'm known online in some places as Azeem Digital, often because people misspelled my surname, so I just thought digital. So exclusive. My last name is not digital. But yeah, so in terms of me, I've been in the industry for about 10 years now. I started off very, very specialist. I was purely PPC. Decided very quickly I needed to branch out and learn about everything else. I moved into SEO, which I'll come back to in a second. So that's me on a day-to-day basis. But other than that, outside of my sort of 9 to 5, I've been fortunate enough to speak at conferences all over the UK and the world, including like Europe and the States. I'm very fortunate that people are interested in what I have to say. On digital marketing, I also host my own podcast called the Azeem Digital Asks podcast, which unbelievably is rated in the top 20 in the world and top 10 in the UK. So I think it's doing okay. But in terms of SEO and content strategy, so that's kind of my bag at the moment. I've been spending a lot of time looking at that. And as I mentioned earlier, I decided that I needed to sort of look into that, which I'll come on to in a moment. But I was drawn to SEO because I realized, for example, having an initial background in paid search, that money eventually runs out. And once that budget runs out, if you don't have an understanding of SEO content that works, you are very much going to be left behind. So I thought I need to get on this train before it leaves the station, pretty much.
Then you're just the right person to talk about this with us. So let's talk a bit more about the content strategy. How do you define it? And how do you define it specifically for international SEO? And a follow-up is, what are the key components of a content strategy?
I'm going to just try and stay away from the key SEO phrase for as long as I can. But for me, a content strategy, very broadly speaking, is literally the way that you are going to create content and how and why for your specific audience. When it comes to international SEO, I think there is another layer of complexity there, because the bad businesses will have one content strategy, let's say, for example, for the UK, and then just do copy paste across the whole of Europe or the world or wherever they operate internationally. The good businesses will have an understanding of each local market, what their needs, wants, fears, desires are, and will look to create a strategy for them and that audience. So I think the key components initially, that solid understanding of the audience. Obviously, it goes without saying that you need to have a very solid understanding of your own product or service. You have to have that killer nailed understanding of your audience before you go any further. And I think that's where some businesses fall down, especially if they do like a one-size-fits-all content strategy. So for example, we can touch on this a little bit later on, but if a business decides to have only text-based content, for example, blogs after blogs after blogs after blogs across the world, I think temporarily there might be like a very short wave of success, but very quickly your audience are going to quickly switch off and be turned off if you're not giving them what they want. If you're giving them what you think they want versus what they actually want, that's where I think strategies fall down.
How important are multimedia elements like audio and video in enhancing content strategy? And also maybe you can comment once again what its role is in international SEO.
Yeah, absolutely. It is vital. If you are listening or watching this episode, this is the one thing that I want you to take away deeply and hang on this. Audio and video are absolutely massive. And if you don't get on board with it now, I think you'll be left behind because your competitors will be. Certainly more so because I've been giving conference talks all around the world where I literally touch on this subject and show how powerful audio and video is. The best way that I sort of describe this, certainly in terms of their importance. Let's say, for example, yourself or anybody listening to or watching this, more often than not, when you're browsing the internet, you're doing something else, or when you're watching TV, you're doing something else. Ultimately, you might even have another device in your hand. So let's say you sat at home tonight, you're watching TV, you've probably got laptop, tablet, mobile in your hand. You're across two screens at once. You don't want to be seeing text-based content because you've only because you're only giving up to half of your attention. You cannot half read a piece of content. That is why something like audio, where you can capture somebody's attention where they're not fully engaged, or video, where you can visually get them where they might not be completely engaged, is massive. And one of the things that I talk about hugely is that it is absolutely huge. If you think about purchase paths, let's say, for example, I labour this example, but I always talk about buying trainers. When you're talking about buying trainers, let's say for me, I like exercise, I like going to the gym, I need a new pair of trainers for the gym. I'll search, I'll decide, for example, if I want to go running, which I don't because cardio is a swear word in my book. I'll decide, okay, I need a pair of running trainers, but I know that I'm going to need a pair of trainers that are comfortable, that will last me for ages, etc., etc. I don't want to read content after content after content. I want to hear from someone who's actually used them about the things that I want, and I want to see them. I want to know what these trainers look like. If I can see someone running in them and telling me about how comfortable they are, I'm more likely to buy it than just reading that Joe Bloggs says these are great, and Joe Bloggs has run 10,000 kilometers in these trainers. When you put the two side by side, you can quite clearly see the difference and how valuable attracting someone's eyes and ears are, rather than just their eyes or their reading mind, for example.
So besides being able to capture the attention of people who don't have that much attention to share at that moment, what are the other benefits of using audio and video elements to enhance the strategy, to enhance your presence?
I think it diversifies your content output. Like I said, and I'll labour this point throughout this episode that we're doing now. Diversifying your output means that you're more likely to gain success from channels that you probably weren't thinking about getting success when you initially created your strategy. If you've got a strategy across multiple channels, let's say, for example, you're including social channels like Meta, Threads, Twitter, YouTube, for example. If you're not on those channels, you've got no chance of having any success on them. Diversifying your content output means you're more likely to get success. The worst thing that can happen is if you put out a piece of video content and it doesn't perform or nobody watches it, there's probably an issue with the distribution there, for example. But nobody is going to say, and I think this is where the fear comes in, nobody's going to watch a video about your product or service and then say, I'm never buying from this company again because they've shown me a video instead of something that I want to read. And I think that's kind of what put businesses off. So another one of the benefits is literally diversifying your output. Multiple channels gives you even more chance of success. You'll then find out what works and what doesn't work for you, and then you can pull those levers to get more of it. Ultimately, you're in a business like that, whether that's in-house or with an agency, you can then use that data to expand your content strategy and say, hey, look, at the start of our strategy, we decided we were only going to spend 10% of our budget on creating video content. We've seen that our audience really loves this, and we know that because our GA4 tells us that people are loving these videos. We can create more of it. You can make data-backed decisions to change your strategy on the fly to get more success. And I guarantee you, not many people are doing that. So it's a great way to get ahead of your competitors, for sure.
And just to solidify the importance and benefits of enhancing your content strategy with audio and visual, do you have any examples in mind where this specifically helped a company take it to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few examples that I use, and it's kind of where businesses sort of get hung up on where do I start? And I think the obvious one for me would be a lot of businesses right now, they will be sitting on massive amount of blog content. They'll be sitting there. Their blog pages is literally full of content that describes their product or their service. And they're sort of talking about, right, here's, I don't know, 20,000 words on how our service performs. You've got an option there to create very simple, like an audio snippet or a teaser. If you've got, let's say, I don't know, let's go really wild, 5,000 word blog content that's got all the features and benefits that you want, you can break that up into 5 little audio snippets, get an image of the product or service that you're talking about, and then say, this product does this, this, and this. Find out more on our website here. Attract the eyes of the person and the ears to attract the click, and then you can get them to read your content. If you have got such a long form piece of content, great. So there's one example. Another one, so that was audio. For video, no brainer. So you can use video to show and tell your audience about your product or service. If you are physically selling products, so let's say, for example, let's say I am a food preparation service, right? You don't want to be just talking to people about how the food is prepared and everything else, this, that, and the other. You want to show people how the food is prepared, show them the kitchen, show them the ingredients, like capture their eyes. If you don't believe that stuff works, literally look at TikTok. There's a whole subsection on TikTok of people going, wild for this sort of stuff. People want to see and hear things. They don't just want to be told things. That age of the consumer, I think, has gone. If you're in e-commerce, massive open goal, I call this, is literally how to. A lot of e-commerce businesses just talk about the product and how great it is, and we've done this, or we've built this in so many hours in our factory, or this, that, and the other. Literally just show them how to. Here's how to use our product. Here's how we envisage you use it. Bonus points, if you've got a good customer base or a good CRM list, you can reach out to them and say, hey, we're running an offer. We want to get some more content from our community. We would like you to record a video of how you're using our product, how it's helping you out. In return, you will allow us to use this for our marketing. If you're happy with that, we'll give you 20% off your next purchase, or X amount. You can then track the use of that code to see if people are engaging with that, and then track the lifetime value of that customer. But more importantly, you're actually getting a piece of video content that you can use visually, or you can just get the audio and use the audio, for example, buying podcast adverts, like somewhere in between this, and putting that in. And I think it all boils down to like this key point, is that people buy from people. That is a fact. And that has always been a fact. But I think it's even more so now, because we're seeing, for example, a lot of noise around this whole perspectives that's all coming in the search from Google. Gone are the days now where people will be typing in product name and reviews. I think those days are gone. Customers will now be able to literally just click a button and see what other people are saying about your product or service. If that's the case, and I'm working inside a brand or an agency for a brand, I want to make sure that people are saying the right things about that stuff. So it just comes down to, the main things are people buy from people, and ultimately like a dominance of that area of the search engine.
Great. Thank you, Azeem. I just wanted to clarify about the audio example. Do you just place an audio file within an article that is triggered like upon a scroll? How does that work?
You can do that. There's a lot of news sites, certainly in the UK, who are dipping into that area. So they'll have a piece of news, for example, or I've seen B2B businesses do this. They'll have a long form article that describes their product and what it's about, and they'll just embed, for example, some sort of AI tool that will just read it out. So you can open the page, press the button, and it will just read it out. Where I was talking about specifically, so that's one option, but that's on the page. You have to assume that your audience is already going to be on the page. To attract them to the page, you can take a snip of it. If I'm an in-house marketer, I can record an audio clip for myself talking about one of the key features, let's say 30 seconds or 60 seconds. I can then release that across, let's say, for example, Twitter or Instagram with like a visual. So no video, but just like a visual of the image with a sound wave at the bottom, and me talking over it to try to attract the click. So before the click, an audio snippet with an image. After the click, or once they're on the page, you can use stuff like AI read out articles. But personally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of those. I think it comes down to like the intent or what people want. So I personally stay away from anything like artificial intelligence generated. I don't believe people want to yet, I would say. I don't believe that people are yet ready to listen to a robot talking to them about things. We're not quite there yet.
Are there specific types of content that are more effective in audio and video formats than text in terms of SEO purposes?
I'm trying to stay away from saying the killer phrase as long as possible, but I think I'm going to have to say it now. It depends. And the reason why I think it depends on specific types of content, it genuinely comes down to your audience. One of the things I talk about a lot is that I believe people should move away from industry benchmarks. Let's say I'm in B2B manufacturing right now. There's going to be certain industry benchmarks about how people engage with content. That's great as a starter. But until you understand your own audience and how they're behaving, you can't give them the content that they want. So when it comes to specific types of audio or video, I'd love to sit here and say, oh, everybody should be doing TikToks or everybody should be doing YouTube shorts. It's not that easy. The only way that you can find out what works best for your audience, if you're listening or watching this, is living inside Google Analytics and setting up events that will trigger. For example, I talk about including scroll depth on long pages and including video tracking. If you layer the two of those together, you'll be able to see, for example, how far people in, Germany will scroll on a page and also how much of the video they're watching. That's your information about your audience. That is solid gold, because if you know that you've got a lot of text-heavy content on your pages, but you know that on average people are only scrolling, let's say 50% to make it easy, nice and round, half of your content is not being seen by the audience. Equally, if you've got a lot of videos on your pages and you're tracking in analytics how much of those videos people are watching, let's say again they're only watching 50%, you've then got another 50% of your videos that people are not watching, which then boils down to time and how much time is being lost because people are producing things that they think people want. For me, it's the equivalent of when someone in the business says, oh, make us go viral. Like, they're just words. So to answer your question, I'd love to say, oh, everybody should be doing shorts or TikToks, but the best way to do this is to understand your audience, your data, and what they want. That is solid gold. So I'm sorry, I can't say do reels, for example, but live inside your own data and let that be the foundation for what works best.
Yeah, I guess if you had given us an answer, everybody would just probably forget about the other focus on one thing, because we're just expanding. This is like the 8th episode of the podcast that we've been doing. But like before, we had our YouTube videos, and we're trying to make shorter videos about explaining our products, like 3-minute tops videos, because we just saw that like the 6-minute longs are not working, 15-minute longs are working like not that well. So we're just always trying to get feedback from our audience and always sort of bounce it back off each other just to see what works. But yeah, definitely, it depends. Unfortunately, it was.
Well, I was just going to say very quickly, one thing you can do there. You might laugh at me for this, but I have genuinely done this in the past, right? Let's use that 50% example. Let's say SE Ranking has got a very long web page that talks about the product, but you know only 50% of people are reading that, right? Get that other 50%, right? The ones that people are reading, get that 50%, show it to someone who you would consider your target audience but hasn't seen the page yet. Let's say someone else in the business, let's say someone in finance, for example, who's not going to look at features and benefits page. Put that in front of them, print it out, put it in front of them, or just email it to them if you're working remotely. Ask them what it tells you. If they can't say anything about what is in the rest of the document, your content is not matching with what you want. If they're talking about things that they haven't seen but it's in the rest of the document, you could probably condense it. Equally the same with a video. If you've got a 6-minute video, you know people are only watching 2 minutes. Show them something from that and say, what does this tell you? What have you learned from this? And then just get more of that. Free bit of advice there for SE Ranking. I'll send you an invoice after this recording.
Let's talk about some more tips. So what if I'm a business that I'm trying to create something high quality, audio and video, because that's the focus of today's event. So do you have any tips for businesses that wanted to do this, like in terms of, high quality stuff? Like, once again, it depends. There's obviously going to be an answer, but like, let's just pretend that we have a perfect case scenario in our minds and talk about that option.
I would say, before you press record, so if you're a business looking to create some high quality, whether it's audio, video, high quality content, that's what you want. Before you press record, you've got to understand the reason why. One of the things that I do with my teams is I will always say, for example, before you open up Google Analytics, know what you're going in there to look for, because it's very easy to just get lost in all the data. I think it's exactly the same when it comes to audio and video. Let's imagine you are out on a shoot, perfect scenario. You've got a lot of budget. You've gone out on a shoot. There's lots of fancy cameras there. You've got lighting set up, everything else. Everything is great. You've got models or actors who are going to be talking about your product or service. It's so easy to just get lost in that whole environment and think, wow, I could be on a Hollywood film set for a second. When actually deep down, the whole point of you going there was to record a video about two people who are going to talk about your product or service and get a really solid piece of content. So the foundation for anything before you hit record is understanding why, what it is, and what it is you're trying to get. And I always say something like, you can't put a square peg into a round hole. So, and what I mean by that is when it comes to audio and video, you can't create a half an hour video, for example, where you are talking in depth about like one customer's journey with your product or service and then just steal 30 seconds of it out of context and hang the rest of your strategy on it. I don't think it works like that. You have to understand before you hit record the purpose of that recording. And if you want some short form stuff afterwards, record extra stuff off the back of it. So in the past, what I've done, when I've done a long video podcast, for example, at the end of the recording, I'll hit record again and record a little video trailer and say, I've just spoken to Joe Blogs about this. Joe, why should people listen to this? It's a completely different piece of content and it will entice people to either watch or listen. And I think the last thing that I would say, the last tips for businesses who are looking to create some high quality stuff, there's a lot of focus that I've seen where businesses are sort of laser tunnel visioned on being absolutely perfect. We've got to get it in complete 4K HD. We've got to get the right shots, the right imagery, the right lighting. We've got to get the right sound. The sound must be perfect. We can't hear anybody's phone going, etc., etc. The point is, there's a laser focus on being perfect. I think perfect doesn't exist. You just have to be right. If you give anyone a choice of being perfect or being right, knowing that perfect doesn't exist, you should, in theory, push to choose right. So businesses are often held back by trying to seek that perfection. Let's edit this video for days, weeks, months. When if it's something that's time sensitive, the moment's probably gone. You just have to be right. If you want to create something like an unboxing of a product, put it out there while the product is still in people's minds. If you're spending 6-8 weeks editing it and the moment's gone, your time has gone as well. You can get budget and stuff back. You can't get your time and you can't get your customers or audience's time back. So one of the tips there is don't focus on being perfect. Just focus on being right.
So we've talked about using audio and visual. So that was the scenario, for example, for one country, one environment. What if we were to expand our operations to another country, another culture? How would we adjust our audio and visual? I mean, obviously, this is going to be, and it depends. Let's just take one example, because obviously, like the Arab world has its own rules. So maybe you localize something. What are the key components that we need to look at when adapting our strategy, content strategy for international markets and different cultures?
I think, well, you've semi-answered the question there. And I think that before I come to my answer, I will say, obviously, there has to be a cultural sensitivity there. So like you said, I couldn't film a video for a product or service in Saudi Arabia where, let's say, I'm in a nightclub, there's alcohol everywhere. It sticks out like a sore thumb. So you have to understand the cultural sensitivities there. And ultimately, a lot of that comes down to language and nuance as well. So you can't, like I said, again, you can't put a square peg into a round hole. You can't go on Google Translate and write out a script for something. Let's say France. I've never been to France, right? I can't create a video about, the best French wine, then go on Google Translate to get a script for it by writing something out, because I bet you French-speaking people in France will see through that a mile away. The best way to localize content internationally, obviously, is have that cultural sensitivity. But above all else, and this operates in every single country that you have to operate in or that you are operating, is authenticity. You have to be genuine. You have to be authentic, because people will see through that a mile off. I'll give you a comedy example. Nobody anywhere would expect to see me in an advert talking about the best hair care products and how these work well for me. Why? Because I've got none. So I'm not going to be talking anything that I just haven't been paid to say. I'm just going to be talking nonsense. I can't say, oh, this is the best shampoo. It's brilliant for my hair. It's great. I use it all the time. People look at that and say, hold on a second, this guy, he's bald. How can he know about this? But if it was a shampoo, let's say specifically for bald people, I can then say, yes, I've used this. It's great. It works well for me. It looks after my skin, moisturizes it, etc., etc. People will believe that. A good example of that is, I won't say any names, but there's a service that like teeth whitening, like a cream, so you don't have to go abroad and get your teeth whitened. They operate in lots of different markets. I mean, I've been seeing their ads when I've been all across Europe, and you can then see, even when I'm talking to locals, that they're seeing the ads, but localized in different languages. So I might be seeing one version of the ad in English. I'm an English-speaking person in that country. They're seeing it, for example, let's say I'm in Spain. They're seeing that same thing, but in Spanish. That is authenticity right down to the T. You cannot manufacture that. You can't make it up. You cannot pay for it. There's no price that you can put on that. So when it comes to localizing stuff across markets, I think obviously the big two things are being culturally sensitive. Like I said, you can't do things that are not allowed in the country. You'll probably be arrested, for example. And the second one, I think, is authenticity. It doesn't matter where you operate, what countries that you operate in. If you are not authentic and genuine when you're talking about your product or service, your customers will see through that a mile off.
Okay, let's talk about how do we keep track and understand that we're moving in the right direction. If we do start, well, hopefully everybody amongst our listeners does use not only textual content in their strategy. So let's talk about what metrics should I keep track of to understand the success of my multimedia content. Obviously, there's going to be an it depends aspect to it, but maybe once again, in your experience, you can give us some pointers what to look at to understand that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to things like this, both audio and video, I think a key metric other than, watch or listen time is retention. So how long are you holding the attention, the ears or the eyes of the person that you are trying to speak to? When it comes to text-based stuff, you've obviously got, oh, great, the click-through rate was great, etc., etc. But like I said earlier on, key metrics like that, the number of impressions, so the number of views that you get in view-throughs, are people actually watching your stuff? Metrics that you probably shouldn't care about are like clicks, click-through rate, blah, blah. That doesn't matter when it comes to audio and video. The key ones you need to understand are how much of this content are they consuming. When you've got like consumption rate, retention rate, you know that people are you are holding their eyes and their ears, but more importantly, you're keeping hold of them. Literally, there are, let's say, for example, YouTube bumper ads or the skippable ads. The really good examples I've seen are people know that after 5 seconds, that skip option is going to come. The best adverts I've seen are where people just start and they'll say, hold on. You do not want to click skip. We've got something awesome to tell you. That's different. People more likely to stay. I've tested it in the past. It works. Trust me. And then a lot of it just comes down to common sense. It sounds, silly, but I say this all the time. And I'm a big advocate of this myself. You've got to understand your audience, like I said earlier on. Let's say I do this all the time. When the football or soccer season is on, the broadcasters over here, they will publish clips. So like 40-second clips of the goals as they go in. I want to see that, right? They know I want to see that. But I promise you, my friend, hell will freeze before I watch 30 seconds of adverts for a 40-second video. That is just content for content's sake. If you're doing things like that and you don't have the context of the content, you're wasting money. I've digressed slightly, but key metrics are retention, consumption. You have to understand how much of this stuff people are watching and listening to, which helps you then decide to carry on. Real world example is when I started my podcast a few years ago, I did episodes that were like an hour long, 40 minutes long. I jumped back into the analytics and I thought, right, okay, retention starts to sort of dip off around the 30 or 40 minute mark. So I made more episodes around that mark. Then I saw retention was dipping off slightly earlier. So I tried a couple of 10-minute episodes or I tried a couple of 20-minute episodes. Then I thought, okay, I release, let's say, 3 20-minute episodes instead of 1 60-minute episode. My retention rate was better and people were listening to more episodes than they were for that 1 hour long. And as I said earlier on, when you have that data, when you have that insight about your own client, product, service, business, whatever, you can make data-driven decisions like that are going to be a massive win for the business. You want to go into the boardroom and ask for more money, they'll say, why do you need it? The best way, 99% success rate, is you can turn around and say, this is what our customers are doing. Your boardroom, your CMO, CFO, whatever, they'll be looking at the industry news and they'll say, oh, marketers investing more in video, blah, blah. You can say, yes, our audience are doing the same. We need this budget to do this. Digressed, but retention and consumption live by those metrics for sure.
Yeah, thank you for your answer, Azeem. A lot of information in there. Thank you. And so how do you see the role of audio and video context in SEO evolving? Let's talk. Yeah, obviously the typical question is in the next 5 years, but like time flies so much. So let's talk about maybe a year. Like, what do you see? What do you see happening over the next year?
Great question. How do I see it evolving? Massively. I think you can just see, for example, the way the search generative experience, or SGE, is on the SERPs now. Very big, very bold, but most importantly, very, very visual. Depending on the types of searches that people are doing, you're now greeted with a lot more video and audio content. If you're not there, you're missing out massively. And then also, like I said, there's an opportunity there for customers to also be there. You've got a chance to say, right, we offer this service. Let's say I sell like grey tops. That's all I sell, or I just sell tops. Get that content, be there. Make sure you're asking your customers for it. Because like I said, people buy from people. Ultimately, Future IC is very much audio and visually led. And if there are people listening or watching this that, you know, are yet to be convinced and are not 100% sure about what I'm saying, all I would say is think about your own behavior when you're online, right? A classic example would be, let's say I want to buy a car, something that I've recently done. I want to buy a car. I don't want to read about all the features of the car. I want to see it. I want to hear the engine. I want to see somebody reviewing it and telling me, great, this is great. You can get all this stuff in the trunk. Oh, you've got the storage for 3-4 suitcases. I don't want to read that. I want you to show me you putting 4 suitcases in the trunk. I want you to show me, I want to hear the sound of the engine. I want to know what it's like for fuel economy and this, that, and the other. I don't have the time to read thousands and thousands of words. I think that's where it comes down to. I think people are more time poor these days. Audio and video is a massive step forward in terms of capturing and holding their attention. And again, if people are yet to be convinced that your audience is time poor, I talk about Amazon a lot. Amazon has made it so easy for us to buy things and get them on the same day. People are genuinely wanting that experience, that satisfaction or gratification immediately, instantly, and in as few moments as possible. I think gone are the days where we just write out a load of content, 10 blogs, press publish, and just sort of, lick our fingers, put it in the air and hope for the best. I think audio and video is genuinely the future. And again, I mentioned it earlier very briefly, but we're now even seeing things like news organizations who, instead of writing massive long articles, you're just getting audio summaries, or you're getting 30-second clips that are being put out on social by talking about the latest news. People are time poor and their attention spans are short. If you're not there, I am fairly certain that your competitors will be. So get on board or risk missing out for sure.
The visual elements have helped us, but at the same time, I think they are one of the causes that we are so we're lacking attention. Like these 8-second videos, that's all that we can go for. Yeah, thanks. I'd like to get you some advice for people who want to excel at this, want to introduce visual and audio content into their strategy as soon as possible. What should such businesses be thinking about right now in order to stay ahead of the curve? So we're sort of already starting to focus on the takeaways, like future next steps. Like right now, I'm listening to the podcast. I like what I'm hearing. I'm excited. I want to take a next step. What would you suggest I do?
I would be trying to, and I'm going to steal a point from a friend of mine, Andy Jarvis, who's brilliant. He talks a lot about talking to your customers rather than talking at them. I would say if you at this point of the episode where you're excited, you're engaged, you're ready to start creating more content, go back and do an audit of your own content. How much of your content is talking, at the customers versus telling them what they probably want, giving them the benefits? If you're just talking at them rather than, to them, I guarantee you the people in your space who are talking to the customers with things that they want are going to be doing better than yours. Have a look at the content you've got now. Go away before you start thinking, right, we need to jump on TikTok and, like you said, make a lot of 8-second videos or make a lot of reels. Before you jump in both feet first, have the foundation of your own content, do an audit. How is it performing? How much of it is literally just, tailored to the very end of the funnel? Our product does this and this, buy it now. How much of it is at the very start of the funnel? Here's the features, here's the benefits, here's why we think you should buy it. Sometimes, it's less often now, but sometimes I think I've even seen marketers who are very stuck at the bottom of that funnel piece, creating that stuff ready for them to buy. Eventually that stuff runs out. It's like fishing in a very small pond. Eventually the fish will run out. You should be trying to capture more fish with a wider net. Look at the intent of all of your content. How much of it is very transactional focused? How much of it is very informational focused? Before you start running off, getting like a podcast microphone or getting the video camera, understand what you're doing first. Have that foundation. Without the solid foundation of what's going on already, everything else that you build on top of it is built on a potentially shaky foundation, which is at risk of collapsing. It's like a house. You can't build a house if the foundation is not solid. So start from the bottom, solid foundation. And if you've got a lot of this stuff that is across all areas, informational, transactional, for example, look at how well it's performing. Like I said, how much of it are people scrolling through? If you've already got video, great. How much of that are people actually watching? I can guarantee with absolute certainty there's nobody listening or watching this episode whose marketing budget is being spent 100% effectively, has a solid amount of video, great suite of video and audio, and everything is great, because they're going to be listening and watching this and thinking, well, I can't take anything away. Like I said, perfect doesn't exist. There will be an opportunity for people listening and watching this to go away and do something that will take their business or service or their client's business to the next level. The challenge is, across all marketing and all marketers, is to find where that is. How do we get that 1% better tomorrow? Start from there, have those solid foundations, and then build from there.
Yeah, I was about to ask you for a takeaway, but this was actually exactly what I was looking for. And perhaps maybe something I didn't ask you, maybe something that you really want to share on the topic that you share at other conferences and places where you do, hold speeches. Just anything that we missed exciting on the topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this, and a lot of people ask me, they will say, Azeem, a lot of that is brilliant. I like what you're saying. Creatively, I'm in a block. I don't know where to begin. So there's two things that I'll say. The very first one is the barrier to entry for audio and video is very, very low. And most importantly, it's very cheap. So if you're a small business, but you still operate internationally, you can still play with the bigger players in your space. What you don't have in funds, you make up for in time. So what I mean there is, when I started my podcast, I had a very cheap microphone, 10, 20 bucks, and I used free editing software. I had to spend more time on making it sound crystal clear and editing. As time went on and it became popular, I was more able to purchase a better quality microphone, a better quality camera, and I spent less time editing. What you lack in money, you can make up for in time. You just need to invest more time than money, so you can do that. And most importantly, this is the bit that I think people will enjoy the most. Right, here's some actual ideas of stuff that you can do. A lot of these ideas I'm about to give you can probably transfer and relate to across multiple industries. So the first area would be information sharing. So you can weigh in on current events. So depending on when this is released, there's a whole lot of noise now about two films, Barbie, Oppenheimer. Your business can get involved in that. I've seen so many different businesses come up with so many different ways of getting involved in that with audio and video. Literally goldmine. Second one would be, the title of your video will be 1, 2, 3, or 5 things you didn't know about our product, our service. Super simple. You can just get head and shoulders in front of the camera and say, did you know that we have reduced our operating costs or our sustainability? We've made things much cheaper for you, which means we can pass on the cost to you. Great. They're not going to immediately buy, but now you've triggered something in their brain to say, right, this business is environmentally friendly and they care about the environment, and most importantly, they'll make it cheap for us. Another one on terms of information sharing would be stitching. So get a very popular video or current trend and then put yourself or someone in your business next to it side by side and literally play around with it, be a bit more playful. People are expecting the human aspect of it. You can't stand there in a suit and a tie and talk about, let's say, for example, it's a very popular video right now where a guy slips up on ice on his drive. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's using it. Everybody's talking about this guy falling over on the ice. You can then literally have a video where someone slips over, you stitch next to it and say, oh, it looks like he's just slipped into our sale, get 20% off. It's that simple. Like, I've literally just made that up on the spot, but it sounds good, right? So that's information sharing. When it comes to personal or professional life, a lot of businesses, certainly in the B2B space that I've seen, they are talked about as just large corporate entities. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they do. We don't know anything about them. They're just giant robotic entities. Great example would be a little video, day in the life. Hi, I'm Azeem. Follow me on my day to work. I'll start off, I'm in the gym in the morning. I'm going to get breakfast. Now I'm going to be looking at what our customers want, blah, blah. Literally just a quick 20 seconds of a day in the life. Break that out. You can have a whole separate video about morning routine. So, for example, you could get the CEO. Oh, I'm Azeem. I'm the CEO of this business. A lot of people maybe don't see me other than when I'm at events or if I'm collecting an award. Here's literally what I do and how I'm trying to make your lives better as our customers. Great. If you're in SaaS, a literal demo of the product, that's what people want. Plot twist as well. Talk about your pricing. People talk about pricing loads. Oh, okay. The only way you're going to get our pricing is if you sign up for a phone call with one of our sales reps. Maybe go back a step and give a literal demo of your software. This is what it does. Here's how we can make your software better. Do that in 10, 20, 30, 60 seconds. Before and after, I talk about this loads. You can, get someone who's a customer and say, this is our customer before the product, and make them look really sad and depressed and, superimpose rain on top of it.
I can wait, right?
This is our customer is, after he's bought SE ranking, Sunshine, he's tracking these rankings. He can do everything that he couldn't do before. The sun is out. He's an SE ranking customer. Boom. And then again, when it comes to personal life, how we do this, so how we make our products. Let's say, again, the t-shirt or the clothing company, show how your products are made. Massive misconception, for example, in the clothing industry is that it's a lot of fast fashion. People don't care. It's not sustainable. If you are different, talk about how you're doing it, how it's different. If you sell coffee, talk about how it's different. How do you brew the perfect coffee? People are, eyes and ears are screaming for this sort of stuff. I could talk all day about this, but the last few that I'll give you is entertainment. People want to be entertained. So talk about frequently asked questions. So again, gone are the days where people have FAQ pages on their website. If you do have them, I bet you they're not being engaged very much, because if you've got an FAQ section, it means somewhere on your website, you're not answering the questions that your customers want. Create a video for it. I'm Azeem. The top asked question that people ask me about my podcast is, how do I get my head so shiny? Let me show you. Literally something super simple. Test viral hacks. For example, I sell, let's say, I sell coffee. I've already used coffee, but I use it again. Let's say I sell coffee. Most people think that you need to spend $50 to get the best coffee. Let me show you how you can do it in 5 by these quick hacks that I've seen on TikTok or anything else. And then the last one would be, I would say, myth busting. So this is a big one that is massive. I use the legal sector a lot. Legal sector, highly regulated. People might be in the legal sector listening to it, watching this, thinking, right, we're in a sector that's super regulated. We can't do any of this stuff. We can't have fun because it's super regulated. We cannot cross the line. There's a massive example, a huge viral example, where a law firm in America, right in front of the camera, head and shoulders, you've got the boss of the law firm. Behind him, you've got all of his staff. He literally sat in front of the camera and he says, hi, I'm Joe Bloggs. This is Joe Bloggs' law firm. We're the best in our area because we're different. I wake up 4 o'clock every morning and I'm the first one in the office. I don't leave until 9 p.m. every night because I'm making sure that all of my clients are being seen to. Behind him, all of his staff are laughing because that's not the case. Super simple, super easy. It makes it look human and it makes you look authentic. And I think that's the perfect way to round it off, is the context of what you're doing. And authenticity is key. If you didn't buy into anything that I've said throughout this whole episode, I've just given you 10 tips, maybe a little bit more about things you can do immediately. Go away, test 1, 2, all of them, see what works and do more of it. And that's ultimately what it all boils down to. That's the whole game of this content when it comes to creating content. See what works and get more of it. We could have literally just done a 30-second episode where I just say, that's it. See what works and get more of it. But if I don't give examples, people are not going to buy into it. So hopefully that has answered your question on some quick fire tips.
Yeah, you're giving us so many different sound bites to work with. We're gonna put up reels promoting this. Yeah, just definitely a lot of value. Sorry, a lot of value packed into this last 2 minutes that been talking. Thanks a lot, Azeem. I'm really excited what turned out. And I'd like to sign off this episode by saying that today, Azeem Ahmad shared with us his expertise and thoughts on how to use audio and visual elements to level up your content strategy. Thank you for your time, Azeem. And I want to thank our guests for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to join the next episode of the Do Follow podcast.